Hi everyone and welcome back. My name is Sandu and today I'll review the most hyped wireless headphones of the moment, released just a few weeks ago, the Sennheiser HD630 that sell for $499 or 499 euros here locally. Now, I also have on hand their predecessors, the Momentum 4, and also the latest releases from Sony and Bowers & Wilkins, and I believe a four-way comparison is something that many of you will appreciate. So let's check this out. Even if I use Bluetooth headphones when traveling, I have a love-hate relationship with Bluetooth headphones, and it has nothing to do with these brands, with their drivers, with their prices, which I consider to be affordable compared to sky-high prices of a few wired headphones. It has to do only with the Bluetooth technology, which wasn't that great a few years ago, but it gets better year after year. And finally, codecs such as aptX Adaptive, aptX Lossless and LDAC can almost match a wired connection if you are streaming CD quality content and not as much high resolution. From all of the wireless headphones that I have on hand, I believe that the Momentum 4 by Sennheiser are the oldest. And once you start checking out their specs and also listen to some music, you quickly realize that the codec support is not that impressive, which limits the sound quality when streaming lossless audio. The HD630 solved these issues by applying two major updates. First of all, these use Bluetooth 5.4 instead of 5.2, and also they added this little guy into the same package. This is the BTD 700, which makes wireless transmission so much better, not only via HD630 or Momentum 4, but via every other wireless headphones I have on hand. This little guy is a high-performance Bluetooth USB Type-C dongle that usually costs 50 euro locally. This thing bypasses your smartphone's internal Bluetooth chip and in return offers all of the Snapdragon sound codecs available right now, including aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, and more importantly, aptX Lossless. Since it supports both Android and iOS devices and also Windows and macOS computers, you can now use all of the best codecs available right now, not only via Android and Windows devices, but also via iOS and macOS devices, unlocking the true potential of your headphones. You can finally stream music in aptX Adaptive with the HD630, with the Momentum 4, and you can even unlock the best codec available right now, the aptX Lossless, with something like a Bowers & Wilkins PX8S2, which is almost undistinguishable from a wired connection. I'm excited that Sennheiser thought about providing these essential Bluetooth codecs to every smartphone and computer out there, something that no other headphone manufacturer did so far. Although looking quite similar with the Momentum 4, there are several notable changes on the HD630 that make it look a bit nicer, get more comfortable long term, and sound even better. The most striking difference is that the ear cups are now deeper and thicker, the ear pads are ever so slightly softer, and the same can be said about the headband's padding, which is now plushier and thicker, providing comfort long term. The headband is now covered with a protein leatherette that looks more durable and premium compared to the old headband of the Momentum 4. The matte black and silver color scheme is very Sennheiser-ish, and I believe they remind me a lot more about the HD6 line of headphones than about the Momentum line. These are slightly heavier compared to the Momentum 4, but the difference is so small, and since we have softer ear pads and a softer padding right here, I believe that the comfort levels are very similar. And after a 3-hour listening marathon, I had just a small discomfort on top of my head, but none around my ears, something that I also felt via those Bowers & Wilkins PX8S2, and I believe it has to do with my head size and not with their comfort levels. On the inside, things are as interesting as ever. And since we now have larger ear caps, I believe that Sennheiser made sure to implement a much nicer dampening. So these will sound more like semi-open headphones than like closed back wireless headphones. There are a couple of adjustments made to the driver assembly that made them more hi-fi and less mid-fi sounding. Sennheiser, however, is not mentioning these adjustments and improvements in their marketing materials. We still have a similarly sized 42mm dynamic driver inside. We still have that legendary 60 hours of battery life with active noise cancellation. Just a kind reminder, the PX8 is to have just 30 hours of playtime, so this is actually quite a big deal. If the headphones battery is depleted, then a short 10-minute charge will give you back around 7 hours of playtime, so that's more than enough for an evening walk around the house. With the new headphones, we also get a new app called Smart Control Plus, available for both Android and iOS devices. With it, you can update the firmware of your headphones. You can enable or disable touch controls. For example, I never enable them. Sennheiser added a crossfeed function which tries to mimic the sound of stereo speakers. Today, the new music is mixed and mastered to work great with both speakers and headphones, but 50 years ago that was not really the case because headphones were not so popular 50 years ago, and of course an extreme stereo effect can be heard via headphones, which puts all of the sounds around your left and right ears with very little information in the middle. The crossfeed mixes both channels a little bit, so a little bit of the right and left, and you have more information in the middle, so finally listening fatigue is no longer as obvious with artists such as Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and so on. The crossfeed feels natural and organic with older music, but with newer recordings, I tend to disable the crossfeed entirely. Connection management lets you select the BTD700 in case it's connected. We also have different active noise cancellation modes, but the most important feature is the addition of a parametric equalizer that makes these headphones so much more appealing to headphone enthusiasts. I usually don't mess with a simple EQ, but the parametric EQ is something else entirely, having full freedom to tune the sound to your preference and mood. Alright everyone, this is everything you need to know about them, so let's hit some eardrums and let's talk sound quality. With the latest releases from Sony and Bowers & Wilkins, I feel that Momentum 4 are no longer reigning supreme, but fighting for a bronze medal with a somewhat laid-back sound that lacks tightness and definition. If you have already watched my PX8 S2 video by Bowers & Wilkins, then you know that I rank them last in terms of sound quality, and while I truly enjoyed their relaxed presentation and to die for mid-range delivery, I couldn't overlook their lack of micro detail information and just smearing the sound compared to the rest that I've had in that comparison. While these were quite punchy sounding and always delivering the thunder with some bass-intensive tracks, their bass quality left a lot to be desired, sounding loose and all over the place, lacking tightness and control, even when compared with the Sony XM6. And this is where the HD630 feels like a major upgrade, solving three of the biggest issues that I had with the original Momentum 4. The biggest upgrade is that you can finally spot a few nuances on the HD630 that were completely buried on the Momentum 4. For example, listening to bass and drum intro by Nils Lofgren, all of that no longer feels mid-fi sounding or strongly emphasizing the bass guitar. On the HD630, the bass guitar now sounds clearer and you can easily follow every note and every trail of the note. All of the musical instruments have more shimmer, more vibration, more definition, and they finally demand your full attention on the HD630. And also what's interesting is that the crowd is no longer somehow interfering with the track, but is being part of the music, is somehow more present into the mix. The micro level information is much easier to spot on the HD 630, and from a somewhat bloated sounding Momentum 4, these sound more hi-fi to me. There is another change. The mid bass lost a little bit of weight, so quantity wise we get less mid bass, but hey, if you are bass head, don't worry, because the quality of the bass improved considerably. And don't worry, there is no roll off in the sub bass or mid bass, there is just a little bit less emphasis in the mid bass, but the quality of the bass is just on another level compared to the Momentum 4. There is simply less hype in the bass and more realism to the sound, which doesn't impress you right away, but I believe in the long run this tuning is much closer to their HD6 line of headphones, and it now makes sense why they are called HD 630. And the last improvement is that the sound no longer feels closed in, up front and claustrophobic like it was the case with the Momentum 4. I remember trying the Sony XM6 and later the Bowers & Wilkins PX8S2 and being impressed by a much more open sound. So the sound was traveling a little bit longer to reach my eardrums. I know it sounds crazy, but the soundstage was actually more impressive. Momentum 4, claustrophobic, closed in, they definitely sounded like a regular pair of closed back headphones. I'm not sure if the newest driver somehow enlarged the soundscape of the music, or maybe these much deeper ear caps just made the sound bigger, but clearly I hear a little bit more separation between the notes, and not just separation, there's just a longer distance between me and the music. And the depth is also improving quite a lot. So these no longer sound like your regular closed back headphones, but more like semi-open on-ear headphones, if that makes any sense. I believe that once music offers you some nicer 3D effects and you can hear it expanding or shrinking, depending on the content you are listening to, I believe that even listening fatigue is no longer a concern, because not everything is playing just inside your head, but all around your head. And it's much easier on your brain, and that's what I'm getting with the HD 630. I'd say that the soundstage and depth improved by around 20, maybe 25% on these compared to Momentum 4. And these are right now at least on the same level with the Bowers & Wilkins PX8S2. Comparing these with the Momentum 4, Sony XM6 and Bowers PX8S2, right off the bat I can say that in terms of comfort, these together with the Momentum 4 and closely followed by the PX8S2 are one of the most comfortable headphones. I'd say that the XM6 are the least comfortable. They apply slightly higher pressure on top of my head, and I cannot wear this for super long periods of time. In terms of build quality, I believe this is where there is no comparison. I believe that PX8S2 are just reigning supreme. Everything is made out of leather and metal, so these are just screaming high quality, but at the same time their price is also premium. These cost $799 US, so $300 more expensive compared to HD 630. The HD 630 are next, and they definitely feel a little bit more premium compared to the Momentum 4 or Sony XM6. Having this leather-like headband and also ear pads and this matte black and matte silver color scheme. Momentum 4 are next, and I believe that Sony are looking the most simple, like a regular pair of mid-thigh wireless headphones, having just lots of plastics, and that's pretty much it. Technology-wise, considering that we have the BTD 700 in the same package, with the HD 630 makes them so much better with every device, smart device that you can have around the house, because these will unlock aptX adaptive and even aptX lossless, even with iOS and Mac OS computers, something that no other headphones can do on their own. So I believe in terms of technology and codec support, these are simply the best. The next in line are definitely the PX8S2. These are providing the best codec right now, the aptX lossless, but you'll need a device that supports such a codec. My smartphone doesn't support it. The smartphone of my wife doesn't support it. But This gizmo right here supports it, and yes, I can use this one with the PX8, and yes, I can unlock that aptX lossless, which is right now the best codec available. The next in line are the Sony XM6 with that LDAC codec, which for a few years now was simply the best Bluetooth codec, but not anymore with that aptX lossless. And the last in this comparison, I believe, is the Momentum 4. These are also the oldest of the bunch, but they still provide that aptX adaptive and aptX HD, which is pretty good in my opinion. Sound-wise, I'll say it right away that I do not enjoy the tuning of the Sony XM6, which can be seen as quite V-shaped with lots of bass energy, lots of treble energy, but very little in the mid-range department, which I believe is the most important part of the frequency response, because our voices and musical instruments, they are mostly playing in the mid-range department, and that feels a little bit dry, not so impressive, not so forward, lacking definition, lacking emotions on the Sony XM6. You have plenty of bass and plenty of treble, but not as much mid-range to make them natural and organic sounding. The Momentum 4 are maybe bloated sounding in either way comparison, lacking some definition, sharpness, sounding mellow and not as fast than the rest, but at the same time they have one of the most impressive and natural and organic mid-range delivery, blooming with such emotion. You know, everything that has to do with vocal performance, musical instruments is just amazing sounding on the Momentum 4 and not so much on the XM6. So I would say that these two are playing more or less on the same level. You might like the Momentum, others might like the XM6. They are sounding, to me, on the same level, and personally I enjoy the sound of the Momentum 4 a little bit more, even if these are not as detailed and these are not showing you as much micro level information like the XM6 are doing. The real battle rages on between the PX8 S2 and the HD630. These will impress you right away with pretty much the most impressive resolution and inner detail, and if you like that part, hearing everything, every bad, every good, these are simply the best from these four headphones. The only part you might sometimes dislike on the PX8 is that the treble is a little bit sharper compared to the rest. These will impress you with that legendary mid-range that Sennheiser is known for, and in this regard these sound very similar with the HD660 S2 and HD650, so very natural and organic sounding in the mid-range, although not as sharp and ultra crisp and detailed like the PX8 S2. The sound is a bit more technical on the PX8, but it's infused with a bit more human emotion on the HD630. I believe that the tonal balance is actually quite fantastic on both of these headphones, although these are emphasizing a little bit the treble a little bit more, and these are emphasizing the mid-range a little bit more, but overall nothing is going up or down. We don't have some major peaks or roll-offs, and I believe that these both are really quite high-end sounding wireless headphones. If PX8 S2 had a similar dongle to unlock the best codec with both Android and iOS devices, then this would be my top choice. Otherwise, right now, I believe that the HD630 offer a nicer codec support with PCs, Macs, and smartphones, getting my top choice right now. My final verdict: if you loved the Momentum 4 but felt that they lacked some definition and control and some of those finer details, then I feel that HD630 will feel like a significant improvement over the Momentum 4. I particularly enjoyed listening to acoustic music and also to live recordings on the HD630 that were nicely expanding the soundstage, sounding area, and a little bit deeper compared to the rest. And I believe that music lovers will truly appreciate this aspect on the HD630. Perhaps the most brilliant move was adding this small little gizmo, the BTD700, in the same package with this that unlocked pretty much the best codec support with every PC, with every smartphone. This is just amazing, so thank you Sennheiser for adding this one in the package. Finally, I can listen to the best codecs available on the HD630 with every smart device that I have in my house. This is truly amazing, and I can use it with many other headphones, which I believe is just mind-blowing. You no longer need the latest and the greatest smartphone for the best codec support, as the BTD 700 covers them fully. Considering that these are just by $50 more expensive compared to the launch price of the Momentum 4 and by $300 more affordable compared to the PX8S2, it's really hard not to recommend the HD 630. Yes, getting my full stamp of approval, having just the right price to performance ratio. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. Please smash that like button and consider subscribing if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers!